Hello, I am Peter Marsh, and it is time for another Aether In ATX video. It's been a while since I made a video, so I wanted to get back in the swing of things and just take everything that I've learned about manifestation over the past 6-7 months and boil it down into one basic idea, like one framework. And it's going to get real abstract, but as always, I want to take this abstract, out of the box weird thinking and apply it to our everyday lives. I make these videos often just for myself. It's a way for me to take all the thoughts in my head and get them onto paper, get them recorded to hear myself saying them. But I hope that you can take something from this and apply it to your life as well. One thing I want to make sure is clear is that all of this stuff, this is basically my interpretation of what I've read and what I have watched, right? I've done some research and this is my take on it. I always get really excited when I see the connective thread through different videos and coming from different people. Like, oh, okay, this person says the same exact thing. I'm always finding that connective tissue. And so basically I kind of boiled it down into this little essay that I wrote. And I'm going to be reading that essay here for this video. I know that's not exactly super thrilling YouTube content, but I've seen some people make these kinds of videos and just read from a notebook too. Usually it's from a journal. This is kind of my journal right here. So let's just jump into it. Strap in. I got 2.5 pages of notes. Hopefully you're just listening to this while you're driving to work or you're taking care of something in your house and you'll hear something I say and be like, okay, that's kind of cool. I never thought of it that way. Maybe not. We'll see. Let me know in the comments what you think about this essay. Okay? Here we go. We are one entity, one consciousness. It means every single thing in reality, everything. The intangible, physical stuff that's all around us, items, animals, people, all of reality is just one thing, okay? And what we consider to be who we are individually, is an identity that's inside of a vessel that experiences things through 5 senses. Okay, so basically there's all of reality, and reality is observing itself. That's what we are. And to observe itself, it basically breaks into little shards or little pieces of reality. And that's what we are in this vessel. Okay? This identity fears death because it is the end of this specific identity. The experiences through our 5 senses are what generate our thoughts, and our thoughts are constant. The ego is the system that collects chosen thoughts and finds patterns and reinforces our identity in this 3D tangible world. Okay, so every single thing is a system, right? Every single part of reality is a system. It's all made up of energy and it's all one consciousness, but broken into smaller conscious pieces, okay? That's what are all these systems. The point of every single aspect of reality, every system, every collection of energy is to stay in that specific form forever. Our ego makes us fear death because it is the end of this specific identity, this system. Fear is what grounds us in this specific reality. So every so often when I'm journaling, when I'm in this kind of heightened state where I'm having these really deep thoughts, especially right before I go to bed, there's certain phrases that I'll kind of think about and that I've generated myself. And one is always that fear grounds me in this reality. Fear grounds us in this reality. That's my take on it. That's just one thing that I've come up with. Another one that I mention a lot in these videos is never fear living in ignorance, because everyone lives in ignorance when there's no real truth. Okay, we're going to go into that a little bit more in a second. So let's see. The ego gains strength through knowledge and experience. The system grows stronger. So the more experiences you have, the more knowledge that you gain. It's all energy, right? You're collecting it all, and you are strengthening this ego, this idea of your own individual self. The more powerful your ego, the more you believe your identity is more valuable than the identity of others or other parts of reality. So the more you believe in yourself, the more importance you place upon yourself, upon your individual identity, the less value you see in the identity of others and of other things in reality. Okay? Happiness is getting external proof that you're complete as a system. So when you feel happy, it's because you're satisfied with your experience that you're having, your individual experience, right? You're getting all this evidence through your five senses that you're doing something right. Something good is happening to you. That's where your happiness comes from, okay? Some of this is real obvious stuff, I know. That your identity is whole by itself. You don't need the external. You don't need more from this reality. The ego, though, can make you believe you need more from it. You need the external to feel complete. This is why narcissists and sociopaths are so powerful in this world. Let me explain about what I just said there, okay? So, basically, people that are truly content, that are truly happy, and I see this through all my manifesting research, is when you feel satisfied with your life the way that it is, you're happy with who you are as a person. And you don't need something external to make you feel happy. You don't need something external to validate your feelings, right? And I think that we often believe that we need some kind of external validation to feel happy. So we seek it out, right? And we have all of our addictions. We have things that we're working towards. We might have goals that are sort of unreasonable. We may have grown up in life like being told that we need certain things to be happy, and so we're always seeking them out, right? And there's my Roku resetting itself for some reason. I don't know. And so, when I said the thing about narcissists and sociopaths is going back to the idea that like some people, their ego is so strong, they think that they deserve happiness so much more than others that they'll do whatever they can to the reality around them to get that happiness, and they don't care about the welfare of others. That's where I'm going with this, this line right here. All fear is really just the fear of the unknown. Not truly knowing something is admitting that your identity is separated from the one consciousness, from the rest of reality. You might have fear of someone or something hurting you physically or emotionally, but that is just fear of how that pain will affect your individual identity. Okay, so that's kind of a weird thing to consider, right? I think that if we're going along with the idea that our individual identity, who we are, right? I'm Peter Marsh, right? That's the identity that I have, right? I'm just a part of reality just like every single other person, but this is my view of reality as a whole. I'm like this separate thing. I'm still connected to it, but I'm observing it. And my identity is the lens in which I observe all of reality. And so fear is basically the idea that like you're not connected to this stuff, that you don't know what's going to happen next. And it's also this fear that you're going to lose this particular identity. Peter Marsh is going to die one day, right? And then he's no longer going to exist. And it's this truly separate feeling from all of creation. You're worried about being separated from, you're worried about losing your identity. And so you might have very specific fears. They could be like, I'm afraid of a attack on my country, and that, I could be hurt, my loved ones could be hurt, something bad could happen to me. It's a very specific fear, and you might have experienced pain, and you might know, like, you might have fear of experiencing that pain again, but ultimately what it comes down to is you're afraid of what that experience is going to do to your identity. I wrote that in this entry right here, okay? So, let's see. Fear of losing a physical piece of yourself, fear of losing someone or something is fear of losing part of what makes you whole. Wonder is the opposite of fear. It is the peace and happiness of realizing there is something greater than you, and you are part of it. You can experience it, so therefore you know what it is. The knowledge, even on a subconscious level, makes you realize you are part of something greater. Fear and wonder are not two separate things, just like we are not separate from all of creation. They are just two parts of the same wave. Fear is moving away from the source, and wonder is when we move closer to the source. Okay, so that's something that I've always struggled with in my life, and especially when I do this manifesting research, okay? And by the way, the reading portion of this video is over. I can just look at you directly now and tell you my thoughts. It always comes down to binary thinking, black and white, good and bad, right? That's the way that society seems to be, especially now, right? It seems so polarized with our way of thinking. And I think that's just kind of natural for humans, right? Because everything that we perceive, we're perceiving through our five senses, and we're perceiving based upon our experiences. And we have to consider that that is a very limited way of looking at all of reality, right? It's like you're taking an ocean and you're trying to view it, within, like a small glass, right? Like you're only seeing a portion of it up close, and there's just so much more to it. So when we try to understand this stuff, it's just natural to think in this polarized way because we experience the extremes, right? We can experience like true depression and sorrow. We can experience true joy and happiness, right? We kind of experience the limits of which we can take, right? And that's part of life. And so we think that there's basically like two poles, but it's basically two parts of the same wave going up and down, right? Our experience, we experience the highs, we experience the lows. And that's how I wanted to bring this back to practical application, right? Obviously, when we talk about fear and wonder, even though they're two parts of the same wave, I think that we should always aim to experience wonder and try not to base our decisions on fear, right? Because if we know the truth that we're all part of one main consciousness, and when this identity goes away, when we die, we just, return back to this consciousness, that is, it's kind of a scary thought because you're afraid that you're going to lose this identity, but it's also a calming thought because you're like, well, that's the way that this goes, and I'm a part of everything. I'm not just this one individual and I die and then that's it. There's something more after I die. I have no idea what that looks like after this identity leaves, but I have this comfort that there is something more when this particular identity ends, right? So I think that we should always aim to experience wonder in life, to always try to seek out that which is greater than what we are, right? For me, I've experienced wonder in a physical sense. I've traveled to a few places. I've never left the country, right? I have seen works of art like in person. I've been there for the times that my children were born, right? I've seen like great examples of humans being kind to each other and supporting each other. I felt like a sense of wonder there, right? But there's so much more that I could experience. For me, on a daily basis, when I try to experience wonder, it is usually in the form of like music or movies. I always say this, and I might have said it in these videos before, but I feel like music is the greatest evidence that like humans can like access the divine. They can access something greater. There's something about music where it's like something greater than us and it touches us inside, right? And movies, I feel like movies are this great collection of all the different types of arts into one art form. And so you can have these experiences where you're seeing something, you're using your sense of sight and then your sense of hearing to experience something, that like when the music and the imagery like sync up perfectly, to me that's just such a wonderful experience, So like when you go throughout the day-to-day basis, this is how we're going to bring this back to the practical stuff. It's really, really easy to just get caught up and get involved in the mundane aspect of life, to get dragged down by your worries and your fears, right? It's very easy on a daily basis to be affected by that. But if you take a step back, if you do like what I just did where I wrote a journal entry
if you meditate, if you just take a moment to just step out of it, right? One of the things I saw, I don't know, was in like one of the manifesting videos or something I read, they were saying that like just going outside and having your feet like step on the soil or step on grass or touch grass, right? Like that's a way to like center yourself, ground yourself, feel connected to everything. Like just having one of those moments can help you detach from these thoughts of worry, all of these things that are connected to the ego and this identity and this fear of losing this identity. And just stepping back and thinking about how you're just part of this greater thing. You're part of reality. You're just one small piece of it observing reality. With that in mind, I think you should like seek out wonder. You should seek out what gives you that feeling of wonder in your life. Try to not give in to fear, not focus on the thoughts that stoke your fears, and try to pursue things that are going to bring you a sense of wonder. And I forget that very often. I forget to do that often. But, luckily I go on YouTube sometimes and I see someone saying something like this, right? Like this video that I made here today. So 16 minutes in, another Aether In ATX video. Let me know what you thought of it. I enjoy making these. And, I also have two other channels. I have the Lastercast, where me and my friend Danny talk about horror movies and horror streaming shows. You can go check that out if you thought this was interesting and you want to hear me talk some more. I have another one called Comic Books Transformed, where me and my friend Brian talk about comics that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. So you can go check that out too. But I'm just so grateful that you made it to the end. And I will be here with you next time.